Welcome to Professor Pincushion. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can create your own beautiful projects doing fabric painting and freezer paper stenciling. This technique is a very inexpensive and creative way to decorate your fabric projects. So now let's see what we're going to need in order to complete this project. Let's take a look at the supplies we're going to need. The first and most important thing is we're going to need our freezer paper, and you can purchase this at your grocery store, and it should say freezer paper on it. So it has one side that just feels like regular paper, and then the other side, the inside, has a waxy finish. So that's the kind of paper that you need in order to do this. You're going to need an ironing board, the fabric that you want to actually put your design on, and it would be a good idea to pre-treat your fabric first, because when you do this process, it should be washable afterwards. So if you do it on a shirt, you'll be able to wash it. So if you're creating your t-shirt or tank top from scratch, go ahead and pre-treat the fabric before you paint it. You're definitely going to need some sort of design in order to create your stencil. I have some fabric paint here, and I was able to pick this up at my local art supply store. So you can check there or check your fabric store or craft store. If you can't find it, you can use acrylic paint and then just mix in some textile medium with it, because we want to make sure that the paint is going to adhere to our fabric and we're going to be able to wash it and stuff. So if you use regular acrylic paint, use a textile medium that you can mix in with it. I'm just using regular fabric paint in my particular case. I'm going to use a foam brush, and a pen and scissors is also handy for this craft. So now we're going to get started in creating our stencil. Here's my design that I want to create a stencil out of. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut out a piece of my freezer paper that's going to be slightly larger than the design that I want to do, because I want to make sure it doesn't cut too close that I may risk actually painting over the edge and onto my fabric. So you make it a little bigger, and you can go ahead and tape this down to hold it. Now just make sure that you put the waxy side of the paper down towards your design, towards the table, and then the paper side is faced up. You're going to grab your marker, and you're going to go ahead and draw an outline of your design. You don't have to do all the shading and all that kind of stuff. You just need to do the outline of where you want to cut. And I actually have one already done. Let's move this one out of the way. So this is done. And to go ahead and start cutting it out, all I like to do, now if you do a simpler design, it definitely makes it a lot easier to do it. But if you want something more elaborate with all these details, you can do it, but it's probably a good idea to invest in a really sharp crafting knife so you can really get in there and do those details. Something larger like this, it makes it easier for me to use scissors because I could do it a little faster. So I just fold my design, and then I use my scissors to just cut a slit, which I've already done. So then I could get my scissors in there, and I could start cutting out the design on the inside of my line. So once I have that started, here is my final stencil. Now the thing is, you can only use the stencil once. So if this is something that you want to do multiple times, then you've got to create a stencil for every one that you're going to use. You'll also notice that I did not cut out this part right here. I just didn't want to take a chance because it's such a fine line. So what I'm going to do is do the stencil for the main part, paint on this, and then once it's dry, I'm going to get a fine painting brush, and I'm just going to do this by hand. So that way it'll look a little neater and I don't have to take that chance. So then once it's done, then you're ready to go ahead and put it on your fabric. The stencil gets placed on the right side of your fabric with the waxy side of the paper down towards the fabric here, because the wax is it's not going to melt, but it's going to heat up and it's going to adhere to the fabric. So that's why you want the wax side down towards that. You're going to make sure that it's centered, and if you're doing it on a piece of fabric that hasn't been stitched to anything else yet, make sure that you take seam allowance into account so you don't put it too close to the edge. I put a pin right here in the middle so I know where the center of my shirt is going to be, so it kind of helps me line it up. So I already have my iron heating up, and all I'm going to do is carefully press down my stencil, get my iron, and put it over one spot. Just leave it there for a few seconds. You don't have to leave it there for very long. Then instead of shifting it, I'm carefully going to lift up and move on to the next section. And then the same thing when I get to the end. So I'm making sure that the whole thing is covered, and you can test it by kind of playing with the edges to make sure that they are, yes, indeed, adhered to the shirt or to your fabric. And the thing is, if you find like, oops, I kind of put it on crooked, I want to do it again, you can easily go ahead and peel this off and do it again. So it's not like it's permanent and whatever you put it, that's what it is. So you're just going to make sure that it's sticking all the way around, and then you're ready to start painting. In preparation for painting, make sure that you have a nice flat area that you can work in, and also that you lay down newspapers or garbage bags so in order to catch the paint. So it is going to seep through your fabric, chances are. Maybe it won't, but chances are it's going to seep through. So that's why it's a good idea to place plastic or cardboard underneath the area that you're going to paint to catch that. Now, if you're doing it on a shirt that's already been stitched together and sewn, so it's already ready to wear, make sure that you cut a piece of cardboard that can slip through the layers and go underneath, because you don't want to do all this work, paint it, and then it seeps through to the back of the shirt as well. So you just got to be really careful. The other thing is I like using the cardboard because then I can use push pins in order to press through the fabric to keep the fabric in place instead of shifting around as I'm painting it. As far as painting goes, I'm going to get some paint onto my brush here, and I like to hold it on my paper as I'm painting it, because for knit, as I'm painting it, it's going to stretch this way, and I want to make sure it's going to stay in place. So I'm just going to lightly paint it, and depending on your fabric depends on how many layers you're going to have to do. So if it's really light, you can go ahead and do another layer in order to darken it up. I'm just going to go from the edge to the center, from the edge to the center, because I don't want to be painting in this direction toward the edge and take a chance that I'm going to lift up my paper and then some of my paint's going to seep through, because I want to have a nice clean image. So in order to be careful, I'm going to start at the edge and carefully pull it towards the center all the way around. So that's how that's going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Read the directions for your paint because everyone is different. I know for my paint, it says that I need to make sure that I shake it before I start using it so everything is mixed together. So you just want to read that carefully and make sure that you're doing everything right. After you finish painting your stencil, you go ahead and let it sit and dry. We don't need to rush it. You're going to go ahead and let it dry. And sometimes it takes up to 24 hours before you're able to take your stencil off. So just let it sit overnight, and then we'll be back tomorrow to see how it turns out. After your paint is fully dry, you're going to carefully peel off the freezer paper, which I've already done, and then you can admire your design. The last thing we need to do is heat set our design so that it'll be washable. So to do that, I'm going to put my iron setting on whatever I would put it for this type of fabric. And then if you're a little nervous about putting your iron directly onto the paint, you can put a little light piece of cloth over it, and you're just carefully going to heat where you have your design because we need to set it. Okay, that should be good. And then I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to do the back of my design as well. So about right here. So then I'm just going to heat this as well. After you've done your heat set, then your stencil is complete. So you can go ahead and finish your project or just enjoy your t-shirt or tank top. Here's another example of one I made that's a little bit more intricate. So if you buy one roll of freezer paper, you can get so many different types of stencils, whatever you can imagine and however intricate that you want them to be. It's best though if you do it on fabric that is smooth, so nothing with ridges or texture. So I've done it here on knit. You can also do it on denim, canvas, silk, cotton, anything like that is probably going to turn out very well. So that's all there is to it, to creating your stencil and doing some fabric painting. Make sure to check out our other videos and visit ProfessorPincushion.com to view our complete library with well over 100 sewing video tutorials. New tutorials are released regularly, so make sure to subscribe to be notified of the next release. Thanks for watching!